our tour wasn't all well, they used to say, well, they do say that war is a long series of boring incidents interspiced with a very exciting few minutes. And that's about the way it was. But the long, boring ones are not too good. But we did have our recreation areas on rare occasions. That's me on the extreme right-hand side. You probably can't see it. Typically, I have a beer in my left hand. That should identify me. The rest of the fellows, well, I believe, possibly the one fellow in the lower photo may still be living. I haven't heard out of him for quite some time, but I think he's still living. So, time marches on. Like we had our recreation, and we had a mascot, Jenny, and Jeannie had a litter of pups, so she must have had her adolescence too. We were pretty lucky to go through unscathed until we tried to capture the island of Okinawa. I didn't realize it at the time, but Okinawa was one of the part of the mainland of Japan at that time. It was a prefecture of Japan, which means it's the same as a state in our vocabulary. If I had known that, I'd been more concerned about it, but there was every reason to be concerned about it anyways. Okinawa was really tested the mettle of the tin can sailors. The tin cans took a bad hit there. There was one lost about every week. This was the firing of at an aircraft, apparently. I can't find it. But this was the fleet at the landing, and as you can see, I guess it's pretty well directed. It looked like it was pretty much indiscriminate firing at the time. This is a picture of the ship that I was on. It's a little better picture than I had before. And let's see. And there's a kamikaze plane, allegedly. I guess it is. I don't know. I don't know where I come across some of these pictures. They're just all over the place. Well, anyways, we were hit by a kamikaze on April the 28th, and we had about 20 casualties there, about 5 mortalities, or maybe 6, I'm not sure, and the rest were injured. My counterpart, I was a torpedoman, and being a torpedoman, you didn't really work your trade that much. Most of the attacks were air attacks, so you had a second. I had 3 different places where I went for general quarters, and one of them was third loader on a 40 millimeter dual 40 millimeter gun. Third loader is the person who takes the ammunition in clips of 4 and passes them up to the second loader, and the second loader gives it to the first loader, and he puts it in. He's on the gun, and so my counterpart on the other side was Vic Lederer during our first kamikaze attack, and he was killed. He was on the port side, and he was on the starboard side, and I was on the port side. So that's the way it goes sometimes. When we were hit on June. We were actually hit with a torpedo. We were getting ready to fire at the beach, and we had already gotten our orders. I heard a little scuttlebutt about this, but I didn't really believe it. But in researching it afterwards, I find that it was true. Our sister ship went back the very next day, but we were assigned a firing position at the wrong spot, I guess, because there was only a single aircraft, and we were just getting ready to fire, and dead in the water, this plane came across our port side and hit number 1 and 2 magazines, blew them up. And this is a drawing that Lee Farrell, a signalman aboard our ship, drew. He was one of the first ones to get on I was going to tell you the name, and I can't think of the name of it. Doesn't matter. Had picked us up.
USS Irwin?
No, it wasn't the Irwin. It was. It doesn't matter. Anyways, he went up. Being a signalman, of course, he went right up on the bridge. He wasn't hurt, and he drew this picture of what it was. What the ship looked like, or his impression of what the ship looked like. That part happened on June 15, 16, the night of June 15. But go back to the first damage, or the first hit, first kamikaze, was on April the 28th, and this is a picture that was finally retrieved from a wallet from our skipper, who was killed during the sinking. Now, how they never recovered his body, but they did recover his wallet, and this was a picture that was in the wallet. I thought that was noteworthy. It was certainly different. So some I have 50 years, but this presentation was 10 years ago, so it's 60 years now, and some 50 years, and I tried to find out what I could, and I don't know how I ever got the commanders of the ship's email, but at that time it probably wasn't too hard. Things were a lot easier then. But it was the USS George Phillip, FFG 12, shown here. I wrote to the Commander Hartling, I think it was, and he wrote me back and said, yes, they have a memorial service every year for the USS Twiggs, and he said, you're welcome, any crew member is welcome to come aboard any time, and he says, as a matter of fact, we're going to be deployed to the South Pacific and expect next year to have a memorial service at the spot where the ship was sunk. So if you can get there, he said, you're welcome aboard. So I turned that over. At that time, we had an organization for the USS Twiggs, and some of them had a little pull with the Navy, more than a little, I guess. The skipper's family was instrumental in helping, I'm sure, but sometime after that, we had about 20-some people on a 13-hour flight to Japan, and finally culminating, well, no, we had about 20, I guess, culminating in the landing at Naha Airport. I was amazed at Okinawa. I thought it would still be all beat up, but it certainly was when I left the first time. But it hardly showed the horrors of the war. Anyways, the Navy treated us quite royally. There was about 20 of us, and they billeted us in the White Beach facility, which is a R&R facility. It consisted of travel trailers that had their head removed, the toilet removed, so that probably to make it a lot more efficient to clean one toilet down the road and to clean all those little toilets, and it gave a little more space in the travel trailer. But it worked out real fine. My wife would have gone along, but she heard about walking down the outside to go to the toilet, and she said, no. This shows you a little shot of the inside of the trailer. It was really quite comfortable, and I don't think she'd have minded it, but she didn't go. They, like I say, they really treated us royally, and they had an air-conditioned bus for us all week long. They had two tour guides. One of them was a military man, and the other was a lady, and the military man knew all about, he was writing a book about Okinawa, and he was pretty well versed in all the battles around there. And the other lady was, I guess she was a travel guide. I don't know just what her credentials were anymore. I've forgotten. But she was well versed in places to visit that were not of a military nature. So it worked out very nicely. And they had this was about the turn of the 10th century, and they had several corpsmen there along with the bus. I guess they felt we were pretty decrepit, but they disappeared very shortly. We toured all the normal touristy areas, and one of which was the bunker that the defense officer, the fellow who was in charge of defending Okinawa, committed carries in the command zone. Well, when we got there, we saw that there was a shrine set up looked like a Shinto shrine, and we didn't know what was going on. So when we got into the bunker, sure enough, there was looked like a Shinto priest and then an older lady and a younger gentleman in there. So we didn't stick around the command post too long, and we came outside, and it turned out that this was the mouse won't work. This was the widow. The older lady there was the widow of the fellow who was the commander. If you saw Hacksaw Ridge, that's was the widow of the fellow who committed suicide on that trip. That's her grandson. He could speak a bit of English, so we conversed a little bit, but there was a lot of bowing and scraping there. We were each bowing to each other, but it was a memorable time, and I remember that very distinctly. Then what we really came over for was the ceremony, which was going to happen the next day aboard the George Phillips. It was a very solemn occasion, and they did a nice job of it. We went out, we started very early in the morning, and everybody got aboard, and then there was a lot of admirals and so forth. And we all went out and had the memorial service at the site. And it was pretty touching.